Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Better than you, apparently. You just got back from out of town. And, if you're going to use excuses like, I had jet lag and I had a cold and listen, we've already heard that on the national stage, Gary. We don't need it here. And so yeah, I'm just making sure you're gonna get through this one. And everybody relax. I don't get political, so relax. It was a joke.
There's nothing political about pointing out somebody nearing the end of life. That's all there is to it. And that's pretty much what.
But enough about us.
Good trip. You guys, most of you saw. I took a little bit of a side trip over to Oracle Park and watched the Giants and Blue Jays play. That was a really, really fun thing to see. And ballpark's really, really cool. I've been there before, but I was there it was dressed up for an event. So it was nice to see it like in its natural state. Super cool. I really loved it, man.
Yeah,
I would definitely go back.
Yeah, you sent me all those pictures. I was, it's a park that I've been to other stadiums, and I really like Petco in San Diego, if it's still Petco, I don't know. Camden Yards is super cool. St. Louis has a really nice ballpark, but San Francisco is on my bucket list. And of course, the Will Clark aspect for me, I would get to go and nerd out and see all that too. But man, that place looks fantastic. I would say that, like, without seeing it, I've got it on my number 2 list. I don't know. What do you think?
It's definitely my number 2.
Okay.
And Petco's my number 3, I would say. I think this is my 16th ballpark now. And I was going to go to Oakland because Oakland was in town too. But I had already been to Oakland. And once you've been there once, you don't need to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mess. And plus, I really wanted to see Toronto, and then Toronto actually showed up and played. Vladdy cut his dreads off. I saw. I didn't even.
Oh, really?
Up. Yeah. He looks a lot.
He's heading into the Kutch age of his career, I guess.
He's having a weird season where he's actually hitting for average and not power, and it's very strange. It's not very Vladdy like, but whatever.
Yeah, you wonder what they'll do with him with this contract situation come up, because he's kind of, never really blossomed after that MVP year that he had. And I wonder if it turns into the Cody Bellinger situation where he has to take a shorter term deal. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if that's the type of thing he would look for. I feel like he is a guy that kind of wants to get his roots planted and just be somewhere. I think he really would like to stay in Toronto, but we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with all that. Let's worry about what we do have first, because the most exciting thing in town really is Paul Skenes. I mean, like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. 11 starts, I think it is now.
11, yeah.
11 starts now, and here he is. He's going to be starting in the All-Star game, we just found out. So they're going to line him up against, Gunnar Henderson and Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, and I'm fairly certain he's only going to get an inning. I don't care. I'm fairly certain that he's got a good chance of giving up a bomb to one of those guys. I don't care. I love it. 6-0 record, 1.90 ERA, 89 strikeouts, 66.1 innings pitched over his first 12 starts. They're comparing him to Nolan Ryan, Jim, and unironically,
his whip is like 0.92. He has elite closer numbers as a starter. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at like that stuff without obviously the saves, but I'm talking about like the whip and the ERA and the Ks per nine. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy, Gary. Like man, I, there, and there's just I think everybody's kind of running out of like superlatives for him. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost to that point. I will say I kind of love how like fate just lined up where like when he started his last game and like it was going to line up with the All-Star game. And then, you know, then he comes out and absolutely shoves in that last start. And I think that almost like put to bed the put the put to rest the stuff about like, well, he's young and he hasn't earned it. I think everybody at that point was like, okay, he's just this good. Let's see him because that kind of died down because there was some pushback about that, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I even, like, feigned a little bit of it when we did the poll question a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
weeks ago, just trying to take the contrarian side of things, but
sure,
I I think there's still a case to be made for that it's probably a little early, but you can't deny that it's the right marketing move for sure, and I think if nothing else, you wanna see, like, strength on strength. It's a perfect situation to ensure that you see it. It
yeah,
gives the other team a chance to line up 3 guys they want to see take at bats against Paul Skenes and vice versa. I love it. I think it's a cool thing. First Pirates starter in the All-Star game on the mound anyway since Jerry Royce in 1975. So it's been a long time. I mean,
yeah. And let's just talk about like what Skeens is already is like he's such a pitcher already. You know what I mean? Like he's doing things with like in-game adjustments and how he attacks guys and the game plan going in and how he sometimes works backwards through the count. Whatever he needs to do, he is already figuring that stuff out, Gary. That to me is the part that, like, yes, all the physical tools are there. Everybody knows that he's 6'6" and whatever and has all these pitches. It's
but
just
there's
the
been a
fact that,
lot of guys that have the body. There have been a lot of guys that have the arm. There have been
mhm,
a lot of guys that can spin the ball. There's been a lot of guys that can be creative and come up with different pitches and,
yeah.
find new ways to get outs. I don't think the league, quite honestly, at least not in my memory, has seen a person on the mound come to the league and look this dominant and ready and complete. And I sit here, Jim, because I like to temper expectations. That's part of my DNA. I do it even when it really, really feels like it shouldn't be done. I can't find holes. I can't find anything that I'm like, oh, he really could work on that a little bit. He even excels at holding runners on at first base. He even excels at controlling the running game. Like, what
And
more could there be? I
yeah, and he strikes me as the type that will constantly work on anything that he does feel he needs to work on. Like yeah, listen, relax, everybody. Like how Sidney Crosby just never stops working on his game, and like he thinks he can improve in everything, right? And then
Yeah,
he'll find something to like challenge himself to do better at. Like those are attributes that not a lot of players have, even great ones. And it's just to me, it really just at this point, Gary, it's just can the guy stay healthy? Because it that's really all it's going to come down to with him.
I
Like,
agree.
yeah. Um, do you what we need to take a break? Um, you want to talk about this no hitter stuff, or are we just going to fly right on past that?
I
And
think we're gonna definitely talk about that no-hitter stuff when we come back. Before we do that, since we're talking about a no-hitter, let's talk about a bat. We have a new friend here that I wanted to bring up to everybody. There's a QR code on your screen if you want to scan it. There's a limited edition bat here from our new friends at Nico Sports. $10 off coupon with the code Morgan. I think that's a pretty creative code that they
it's
came up
super
with there.
creative.
If you scan this QR code, though, it'll take you to this bat, and they're only making 412 of them. Those of you that collect things like that, that's pretty cute. So go ahead and do that if you don't mind. Reverse this if you are listening on audio. You can actually type in this code if you want to. It exists somewhere. It's also on my Twitter page. Go ahead and check out my Twitter page, and you'll get all that short code information if you want a different way to order. But good stuff. Check it out. I think you'll be very happy with it. And let's take a break, Jim. I think that's a good time.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Let's see, Sean Connolly checks in to say, Paul Skenes, King of Pittsburgh. Yeah, it sure feels that way. And let's see, Tommy and Elizabeth Britton say, Paul Skenes is the Michael Jordan of baseball. Hey, it's probably early for that yet, but
Yeah.
he's certainly in that conversation. That's the type of talent he is. And I think, Jim, an important thing that you brought up there was about Sidney Crosby. I think that a lot of people identify with that as generational talent here in Pittsburgh. I think even you probably get a little bit of a tight sphincter when you start thinking about mentioning Mario Lemieux still. He's still an echelon above that, right?
Yeah.
But Paul Skenes is every bit that kind of generational talent. So before we start talking about this almost no-hitter, the first thing I wanted to bring up to you was just looking back on it now. It's been almost a year. We're almost to the draft, which, by the way, everyone, I could give a crap about. They're picking ninth.
Yeah.
Whatever they pick is a crap
Gary,
shoot. I don't care what you think you know. So
we have off air talked zero about it, and I'm the same way. I get it. People love it. It's if that's your thing, great.
There's a tremendous article on my site written by my guys about it. I just don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care, man. It's just not my thing. When we pick ninth, I'm sorry, I don't care. That said, we talked an awful lot last year about it, and we were really torn. Even you weren't 100% Skenes. You were 75-25. You know?
Yeah, I was at the days getting close to it. I was keep going towards Skenes. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't anybody. I mean, everything is revisionist history afterwards, but it was a situation where can you imagine if they wouldn't have taken him and that he's doing this somewhere else, Gary?
No, but let's be real honest. Everybody didn't have them separated by a whole lot. You know what I mean? I do think nationally, locally, I do think almost everybody kind of leaned Skenes. It kind of wound up that way. Some people went all in Skenes, but I didn't see anybody go all in Cruz. It was very lean Skenes, all in Skenes, you know?
You know what? As an exercise later, I'm going to go through some Twitter and see what people were saying. I do still remember some people being like, you can't pass up the generational bat.
You got to take the bat. You got to take the
generational.
Bat.
Generational bat. Folks, we now know what generation. If you didn't know what generational looks like, now you do. So quit using that word, by the way. Right?
I do think that the Pirates basically didn't outthink themselves and took the right guy here, right? So good for them. It's worked out. Good for Paul Skenes because he's done things that baseball hasn't seen. People talk about how insane it is that the Pirates have called up their 1-1 the year after picking him and how insane it is that he's where he is and everything. This is a league thing. I think every single team would be kind of surprised how quickly he's here. I think the Pirates, quite frankly, and Ben Cherington's comments have kind of mirrored this. I think they're kind of like a little shocked themselves that he's where he is. I don't think anybody could have dreamed that this is what he'd be doing right now. And this is different than Jared Jones, who came flying out the gate and has great stuff. Paul Skenes just doesn't look like he's struggling. And even when he does look like he's struggling, he kind of looks like, oh, okay, that avenue's shut. I'll just go this way.
Right. There's a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. He has those pitches that he can, rely on to do that. So
Michael from 412 says, I was in on Cruz. Good thing you know who convinced the Pirates to take Ski. Those of you that don't know, like that Tim Williams dude, like decided to take full credit for the Pirates deciding to pick Paul Skenes. He was the only one that saw that talent.
Unbelievable the stuff that comes out of people's mouths.
The only person that has more mental capacity than they actually do and regularly touts it is Joe Biden. Not to go back to that well of jokes again.
Hey.
But still. Anyways, so Paul Skenes almost no hitter, right? 7 innings of complete no hit ball. Crazy. I knew he wasn't going to stay in. If it was one more inning, I think maybe Shelton probably lets him try as long as it stays clean,
How would you tell him no if it's one more inning, right? Like you got to at least let him try to go out and see if maybe he gets a 7-pitch inning out of it. Yeah. I think you would at that point, Gary. I think you'd almost have to let him do it. But 2 innings, man. And Shelton,
I think it would have been too much. I think you would have been talking about 130 innings or 130 pitches. And I think you might have been legitimately talking about shutting him down for the All-Star game if he had gone 130. So you can make that decision if you want. I would say that his comments afterwards, Derek Shelton's I'm talking about, were taken a little bit negatively because some people read it almost as he was blaming Paul Skenes for not being able to have the pitches left to finish the game, and I don't think that's what he meant by it, but I think that he's illustrating, like, listen, to get a complete game, you've got to do this miracle, and this miracle's got to happen too, and then you'll have an opportunity for it. To get a no-hitter, you've got to have 3 miracles, and Paul was only able to turn water into wine and raise someone from the dead. Unfortunately, he couldn't get that last one in. So I think that's all it was, really, is just kind of explaining where he's at. That's not a button we're looking to push right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know, man. Look, no hitters are cool, but people legitimately like lose their marbles over the prospect of no hitters. I guess, like, yeah, if someone's going to throw one, great. But to me, it goes down on the list, especially when you're talking only after 7 innings, right? Like, it just seems like people get real caught up in the no hit. Am I off base that, like, I think, yeah, they're cool, but it's not my main priority. People went insane about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw some of that, Jim, and obviously I wasn't here, but so I'm like reading it at like 3 hours afterwards in some cases, but from what I saw, it was mostly the people that were going insane kind of tend to be there already.
Insane on other things.
Like, for instance, we're talking like those 5 tweet linked together rants about like Rowdy Tellez batting 4th, like, and the same level of irritation for Paul Skenes getting pulled out of a potential no-hit bid. Like, I don't take you seriously because you made a joke of yourself already. You know what I mean? So I don't really care about that. I think these t-shirts that Cody Duncan is selling with the mustached Paul Skenes face, I can't get past it, man. It just looks so silly to me. I don't
Well,
like it. I really hope that logo doesn't catch on, and it has nothing to do with him at all. I can't stand it. Part of me hopes he just shaves it, just to screw everybody that's making mustache things. I mean, I hate it. I really
well,
do.
you know what? I don't really have anything nice to say right now about so and so, so I'm not going to. How about that one?
Yeah, man. So, anyways, opportunity for no hitter was gone. Boy, you don't feel like it's his last one, and it makes you.
Yeah,
You don't want to be like that. You don't want to think like that. That's not the way that you should think about a baseball player. He makes it hard not to. He makes it very hard not to picture him just plowing through the league and being in position to have no hitters 2-3 times a season. You just see it like as something that should be entirely within his skill set. That's
yeah,
probably not fair, Jim, but that's what happens to phenoms. I expect Connor McDavid to score every time I watch him play.
right. Yeah, he's at the point where, like, I don't know if you can raise expectations too high, but he's done it simply because of how spectacular he's looked. And I guess if there's like one little chink in his armor right now is, his pitch counts, right? Like we start watching his pitch counts because it seems like early on he gets them high and then he settles down and he can get through 6 or 7. And that's really it, Gary. That's really it. But he's a strikeout pitcher, and sometimes that takes pitches to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that it's nobody can hit him. So I mean, like if he's not throwing strike, 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 strike,
Hmm.
you're going to have some, you know,
Right.
2-2 counts, and guys are going to
Hmm.
foul off some fastballs here and there, and they're going to touch that splinker and knock it down the line at least. So I don't know. It feels to me like the pitch count thing's kind of always going to be a problem, and if anything, I could see maybe him going the way of Justin Verlander, where he's a different person and you don't care so much about it. And I know that he's had a lot of injuries, Justin Verlander, but he's also been a horse in this league for a long time, and pitch counts have always just been a suggestion to him. Innings counts have always been a suggestion to him because he's built different. Even coming back from Tommy John, different timeline for him. Verlander's a different physical specimen. So is
Right.
Paul Skenes. We could very well see him have a different kind of career.
Sure. Yeah. And going back to just the whole situation when they took him out, I guess, like, would I have had an issue if they brought him in for the 8th and seeing if he could, squeeze one more inning out of it? But they had Holderman ready. I know Holderman has been up and down a bit lately, but it's not like they brought in Dennis Santana to close, to try to get to the 9th, right? So,
Yeah.
like, ultimately, if you've got a pitcher and you think he's probably near the end of it, and that's what Shelton said, was that, hey, I think he was tired at that point based on what we were seeing. The ultimate goal is to win the game, right?
Right.
Holderman, I mean, I don't see the big issue with bringing in Holderman to get through the 8th there. It worked. So they won the game, by the way, on top of it all.
They did win the game. I was a little bit nervous, like during the Holderman inning, especially. And then you're always nervous with Chapman because you never
Sure.
know what you're going to get. And obviously, winning the game is priority. But I don't know. Paul Skenes is still a young player. And even though he's pitching well enough to be in the conversation for the NL Cy Young, legitimately, and he's pitching well enough to be the starting pitcher in the All-Star game, and he is probably the leader in the clubhouse for Rookie of the Year right now. I guess
Right.
my question is, Jim, I think the Pirates handled Paul Skenes really well. I think he had to go to the minors a little bit. I think they really needed to try to stretch his innings out the way they did at the beginning of the season. You and I talked about that in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave away draft picks here, probably. They gave away the draft pick that they would win for him, being rookie of the year. And I think he's probably going to win it. How do you feel about that? Do you think they still made the right decision, or do you think they probably should have just said, let's go get that rookie of the year?
I don't think, as it's turned out, Gary, as much as, the Pirates deserve criticism in a lot of areas, what more could you ask from how it's turned out with his performance? Like, to me, if you are trying to poke holes in how they did this, I just think it's being way, way too critical. It could not have worked out any better from what we were seeing on the mound with Paul Skenes right this second. It could not have. Like, what else when it comes down to the performance part of it could you possibly want more? Like, so how could you go back and say that they didn't do it the right way? I just
I think maybe did it the right way is probably a little strong. I just mean, like, a team like this, can they afford to give up that draft pick? It's a really high pick. It's important for this team. It probably wouldn't have cost them much. They could have even just started him in the bullpen and been fine here and done the same thing with innings. It's just an alternative timeline that could have taken place. And as good as he is, it's very clear that he's going to be in the running for that. I don't know how I would have that in my pocket as a possibility and not have shot for it. I have not had a problem with anything they've done. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
right.
But
Yeah, I guess what it comes down to me is, like, ultimately, like, my focus would be on just with him and, like, not worrying about the other aspects that are attached to it, just simply because, like, the ultimate goal there is to make sure that everything with him, you maximize it and get him ready to go, and you let the cards fall where they may. And sometimes I criticize the Pirates for keeping their eyes on other things instead of just dealing with, like, trying to win and trying to put the best team on the field. So I don't want to be critical, because I feel like that is maybe, like, for me at least, would be hypocritical to do in that situation. Does that
right,
make
I
sense?
got you. No,
Yeah.
I totally get you. And let's see. Tommy says Rich Eisen said Shelton should be punished for pulling. Well, Rich Eisen also thinks that Mike Tomlin can do absolutely no wrong. So I guess I'll have to
Yeah.
agree with Rich Eisen on something at some point before I start factoring in his opinion.
Well, you know what? I mean, like, I saw some national people, even our buddy Mike DeCourcy, I think he was a little bit critical of them pulling him. So it hasn't all been, and we both respect him.
Yeah.
He's great. So it wasn't just the local sports idiot in Twitter. There were some people that thought, well, he's pitched that many pitches in college. Well, yeah, but they only pitch like once a week.
The worst thing is when Filipponi does his hyperbole tweets, like where he'll compare him to like Nolan Ryan or some shit. You can't even like slap him in the nose because he's right.
Yeah, Pony looks to exaggerate, and in this case he's kind of not, even though he's trying to.
Right. I totally hear you, man. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about what happened last year. And wait, what's this now? Matt, you're gonna have to clarify. Skenes wanted it. Let's not BS this. What are you talking about? The staying in for the 2 innings? Is that what you mean? Get back to me after the break. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I want to come back and talk a little bit about how the Pirates did in that Milwaukee series and look forward to this Chicago series because, Jim, I'm sure it's not lost on you if they somehow sweep Chicago. They're 500 at the All-Star break. So, okay, Matt has said yes. I mean, Matt, I'm sorry you feel we're BS and you were giving our opinions. I don't have a problem with him being pulled, and I don't really care what any player wants ever. I don't ever care about that. Sorry, I don't. I'm sure Rowdy wanted to start all season long and not ever have to sit on the bench while Connor Joe played. I don't care. I'm sure Grandal wants to start. I don't care. I'm sure Mitch Keller wants to stay in an awful lot. I don't care. The trainers are paid to know what's best for those arms. I'm sorry. And if you don't trust them one time, then you can't trust them ever. You don't just get to pick and choose when it's fun to trust them. And as far as fans go and like needing to see a no-hitter or something, I'm sorry. I don't care about that either. I don't. I don't even remember most people that have them. Jim, in fact, I probably remember the one dude that got screwed out of one more than I remember the no-hitters.
And wasn't that a perfect game, maybe even?
Yeah, that was up in, I think, Detroit, and the umpire had a bad call at first base, and I probably remember more about that than most of them, to be honest with you. And I'm not risking the kid's arm. I think he's already going to be pushing it to finish this season. I'm just not doing that to him.
Yeah, listen, I guess for me it's real simple. If he had one morning to go, man,
yeah, I'd
let
do
him
it
try. Let him try, right?
But
I think Paul Skenes, based on the comments I saw from him, he did not seem to be. He said he understood it. Now you can play devil's advocate with that and say that, he is just going to toe the company line there. But I think even he's realistic that like 8 and 9 innings, that's a big ask.
He's realistic, but just last year he'd have been allowed to stay in and finish it. You know what I mean? So last year they'd have let him do it in college, and I could understand him being frustrated. I will say, like, I mean, even his girlfriend understands it. She was interviewed today, and like, she's an athlete. She understands load management, and I mean, her answer, she might as well have been, a Pirates trainer. The way she gave her answer for why he wasn't able to do it, and they're athletes. They come to grips with this stuff real quick. Even like Jared Jones, like there's a little bit of a bugaboo where the Pirates said he had a grade 2 lat strain and he had said he had a grade 1, right? Now, when they look at that sort of thing and they have a different determination than he does, I don't think Jared Jones is freaking out thinking that they're trying to screw him out of pitching or something. I think he thinks that they're doing what's best for his health. Why would a player not think that they want to keep him healthy, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
I think we think an awful lot of nefarious things because we have been hurt by this team a lot more than these players have. These players have not been hurt by this team. They're being coddled the way professional athletes are coddled now. That's all there is to it. Sorry it sucks. Sorry it's not the 70s. Sorry it's not Maz out there
and
pitching throwing with no rotator cuff from second base.
And I guess if you're upset with it, then you're upset with baseball, not the Pirates, because every other team would have handled that the same way, other than maybe letting him start the 8th. But no one's going to take Gary. Can I remind people too that, like, you remember when David Bednar said he could pitch 50 innings or 50 pitches in an outing against the Dodgers because he said he could do it? Players are always going to say that. Like they've had to learn with David Bednar, like he's always going to say he can take the ball. He's always going to say, like, what you find out.
He didn't want to go on the IL this last time.
Right. So like it's not just about what the player wants. David Bednar, remember that. It was the Dodgers series, and for whatever reason, the Pirates decided that Dodgers series was the World Series, and we let David Bednar pitch, I think it was 50 pitches. It was something
There's a
crazy
couple
like
of comments in here. One from Jason Spinelli about Nolan Ryan didn't throw 102, 99. Eric Longbeard here says Nolan threw pretty dang hard. I think one thing everyone tends to forget is how much radar technology has changed from Nolan Ryan's days to today. It's not only more accurate, it's aimed at a different place. So any velocities that they captured on radar back in the 80s aren't the same as what they're capturing now. They're capturing the velocity at a different place. They're measuring things differently now. The technology has increased to the point you have to think about where that technology came from. Cops couldn't even use it to write you a ticket yet back then because it was so inaccurate.
Right.
So, like, I just think when we compare eras, you're always going to step in landmines, so don't. But Nolan Ryan threw plenty hard. I think if you asked anybody that faced him, and I've heard several of them interviewed. In fact, there's a great documentary on Netflix about Nolan Ryan. Go check it out. It actually talked about how he strengthened his arm by throwing newspapers every day. But anybody that talks to you about facing Nolan Ryan would tell you he easily threw the hardest fastball they'd ever seen.
Right.
So, like, what does that mean? Maybe he has Bailey Falter extension. Maybe he's throwing a hell of a lot faster than the radar says, too. Okay.
Yeah. And I think too, like, the thing that I would bring up with this is you have a guy that is clearly special, like special. If you have to go on one side of like erring on the side of caution just a little bit, or getting to the point where you're not gonna worry about that and not abuse it, but like push your luck with it, which side would you fall on at this stage?
Yeah.
I know which side I'd fall on. That's all. Like if I'm going one way or the other, yeah, I want to be careful with him a little bit. That doesn't sound crazy to me.
No. And I would say, like, if it's like clinching game of the wild card series or something.
Different.
Maybe you leave him in,
Different story, right?
But that might be the last game he pitches this year. So yeah, you do different things in the playoffs. Sometimes you do. Sometimes if you're Tampa Bay, you do exactly what the analytics tell you to do anyway. And I think a lot of people have to come to grips with the fact that that's the way the game's going, and I don't like it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And if that point about was it Snell with the Rays and they took him out, because do I think you can take it to an extreme and that would be an example of where you maybe did? Okay, I can buy that with that. But like, I do think that like there are degrees to it, and a no-hitter would be nice. Would I remotely care if he got it or didn't get it? No. So to me, it's a dead issue at this point.
That said, as my coach, don't come out and tell me that he started looking tired. He didn't. I watched the game. We all watched the game.
It was curious because
he didn't look tired.
He was saying that, but then he really never gave any like real insight behind it. It was just because like my eyes were telling me.
But they're taught like that, somebody that's in our chat here, I'll just pick a name, is going to get upset if they hear you talk about pitch count. So you have to talk about it in terms that they understand, like fatigue and tired and not as sharp or things like that, right? That's the way that they kind of skirt that whole pitch count thing. They don't even like to tell you it's 100, even though it's very clearly 100, right? And I just think like baseball does those stupid things to try to shield themselves from you believing that it's literally that numbers driven, right? Even the broadcasters will do it. They'll go like, "Who knows? Could we see him out for the 8th?" You know damn well you're not going to see him out for the 8th. Why are you saying that?
Right.
I mean, where you're sitting, you can see what's going on in the bullpen. I just think that people really need to back off here and realize like he's a rookie. He's going to get more chances at it. Let's not freak out like it's the last time he'll ever have it. Michael says he was more pitch to contact in the 6th and 7th. May have been an attempt to go deeper in the game rather than fatigued and impacted. Well, yeah, I'm sure he was trying to do something to get a little deeper into the game. He's capable of that. I'm also sure that when you have 11 strikeouts, you're not going to get very deep into a game. You're just not.
It's tough to do.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, you can't have that kind of strikeout number in this game, not in today's game anyway, and get to the 9th inning with gas in the tank. You're just not going to have pitches left to give. That's all there is to it.
And as we'll get to what we want to get to next, but the last thing I'll say about this is another example where I thought maybe the Pirates took this to an extreme was when Jared Jones had that outing where he had pitched 50 some pitches and looked spectacular, and then that was just like they said that was it. That was the pregame game plan, and they stuck to it and whatever. So listen, I'm not totally bought into that it can't get a little ridiculous at times when they adhere to certain things, but I think it's legitimate in other cases. So is everything that black and white? I don't think it is.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add is I don't think that it's fair to say this is saving innings for his future team. I also think if you're talking about that sort of thing right now while you're watching what you're watching, and you have probably 5 or 6 more years of that no matter what, if he stays healthy, you don't like this game. Just stop watching it. This is what it is. You get a phenom like this, there's no salary cap. Yeah, he'll go. Do you want to talk about that for 5 years, or do you want to talk about what he's doing? Let's talk about what he's doing.
I had more than a few comments about like, well, they'll waste him and he'll be gone and whatever. Okay, maybe Gary, maybe it happens exactly that way. But sometimes I just want to sit back and watch a performance. That's like, yeah, all that stuff's there. It's baseball, and the system sucks. But I'm also going to just marvel at somebody doing something very special on that mound and enjoy it in the moment, because we don't know. We don't know. Maybe he has 3 Tommy John
almost
surgeries.
50 years old. Have you ever seen it before? What he's doing?
No. I mean, so maybe that's it.
Do you think it's going to happen again in my lifetime? I'm not holding my breath. And I'm watching some really, really nice looking pitching prospects coming up. But if you don't recognize this is different and shut your mouth and enjoy the ride, I don't know what to tell you. You just don't like this game. You just don't. Go ahead and wait for him to be a Yankee then.
You can love things about baseball and hate things about baseball. Trust me, I do. Like, how many times do I talk about just the stupidity of this game? It's not going to stop me from loving certain things about it. Like, I can differentiate the two. Like, it doesn't have to be the all or nothing for me. And if that's how you choose to do it, so be it.
Well, speaking of stupidity in the game, somehow the Pirates overcame their Milwaukee bugaboo tendencies and took a series there, and it's set them up for something pretty cool. So let's take a break and jump back into that.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum. Matt has to try again because he's never going to stop being right. If Skenes pitched a no-hitter, you would be talking a different tune. You're right. I'd be marveling at how he managed to keep his pitches in control and had that many to finish the damn game, Matt. That's what I'd be talking about. I'd be impressed by how efficient he was. He wasn't. They're not going to let the rookie stud pitcher throw 130 pitches in a game, no matter what record it's going to be in a book. These people, you cannot be this stupid. I'm sorry. People cannot be this stupid. Like you have like a chunk of gold in your hand and you just want to flake off pieces of it and coat the edges of the Bible. Like, what are you doing? Who gives a crap about a no-hitter in the middle of June or July when you have a guy that really could be a stud here for a long time? Let's go ahead and blow his arm out. Let's Kerry Wood him. Let's let him go for 21 strikeouts just for fun.
It really is a no-win situation for the Pirates, because if you take him out and you get criticized for that, if you leave him in and at the end of the season you rode him and he got hurt, well, guess what you're going to get for that too? You're going to get criticized. So the only way it magically works is if you pitch him without much caution and he magically stays healthy the whole time. I mean, if that's like your game plan, I think that's a little foolish. So sorry, Matt, I don't agree with you. And that's
Plus,
okay.
I've had 3 hours of sleep
That's okay.
in 48 hours. So
yeah, Gary,
F anyone that comes at me today. That's all there is to it.
You're cranky. You're cranky, and baby needs bedtime.
For sure. I just told Jim before this, I'm like, I'm gonna snap off on somebody. So let's talk about a little bit about that series in Milwaukee, because first you had a blowout one way, you had a blowout the other way, and then you had a 1-0, win with your freak. I think that's really the story of the series, right? That's what makes the Pirates really competitive. They have the type of pitching that can go in and shut down a team every once in a while and give them a stolen victory. The bats came alive and took one. The bats went to sleep and gave one against a pitcher that for some reason gives them fits. Aaron Savali is nowhere near as good as he has looked against the Pirates this year. Just nowhere near.
If all you had to go off of was those two games, you'd be like, this guy, man, they got another one. The Brewers got another pitcher out of thin air. He's not good.
He's really not. And he won't do them much good in the standings, but he beat the Pirates. I would say that series, though, it's really important because it sets up this last series with Chicago. 3 games left before the All-Star break. The Pirates are 3 games under 500. It's a heck of a coincidence. They haven't won or lost 3 games in a row in like 55 games, I think. It's almost a record. The Boston Braves hold the record, I think, at 57.
It's an incredible stretch for all the wrong reasons, but
and that stretched over an off season. Their record. So like the Pirates have done it all in this season.
And the one I saw was the Braves, and that was in season. And that was actually a couple years ago, actually.
Yeah. So they won't go on a streak. We talked about that a few weeks ago being important. But they're also not going on the streak in the other direction. And so they're treading water. This is such a 500 team, Jim. It really is. It's a 500 team all day and night. And Paul Skenes is able to go in and steal one every once in a while. Jared Jones was doing the same thing. Mitch Keller can do that on occasion. I think the rest of the rotation right now is kind of a question mark. Marco Gonzalez comes back tonight. Mm-hmm. Martin Perez has been a little bit less than awesome, right?
Yeah.
Quinn Priester, really encouraging. Luis Ortiz, amazing that he's kind of back in the picture now. Paul Skenes and Mitch Keller are the givens. Do you think they have enough still? Or are we like, oh my goodness, we got to get Jones back. We got to get Falter back. We're in a lot of trouble.
I guess until they prove that they can get out of this several months now of just the 1 step forward, 1.5 step back type deal, that I don't know. And it's like that's why this White Sox series, you feel like, man, they got to get at least 2 out of 3. Hey, Harry from Panama, jeez,
Nice.
howdy. It just feels like this Chicago White Sox series is so important. You got to get at least 2 or 3, don't you? Like,
You certainly can't get swept like they did against Oakland. You have to have a showing here. Like, this is a
problem
series.
is first pitcher their face is actually fantastic. So that's why I'm saying the 2 out of 3. I think to answer your question, Gary, I don't see how if they don't go get a little bit of help that they can reverse course. We're getting close to August.
Yeah,
I think
and
they kind of
if
are what they
anything,
are.
if anything, I'm kind of questioning where that help should come. You know, I feel like they still need help at catcher. Although Joey Bart has kind of taken over as the starting catcher at this point. They are playing him a starter's load. And that's been better, but he's still not great. I don't know if Henry Davis makes it back. I'm not even sure that I would want to inject him into that until he's really put in some time in AAA and looks better. Maybe a catcher is something that you could go out and pluck, like to improve things. I still feel like they need an outfielder, Jim, but like Joshua Palacios has been pretty good. I've been hesitant to believe in him, but in 5 Thoughts this week, I wrote a little bit about maybe he's kind of just a victim of his path. You know, we can't let go of the fact that he was a minor league Rule 5 selection, and we're going to just make him pay that penalty for the rest of his career. He's always going to be a Rule 5 selection in the minor league portion. We're always going to remember he didn't come from a high draft pick. You know, why do we do that to players? Why do we hold them accountable for how they got here as opposed to what they're doing when they're here? Because there's some really good things that he's doing that aren't just flukes. He takes a good at bat. He knows the moment. He knows when to just pull the ball and advance the runner. He knows how to do some exciting things on the baseball field. He runs when he needs to. He can steal base for you. He can move runners over. He can hit a home run if you have to have it. He can face lefties if you really need it. I don't know. Maybe he is kind of okay as an answer.
Well, the big concern I had with him was what he did last year in very key moments repeatable? Because overall his numbers weren't great, but like when it really seemed to matter, then he would come through or at least spark something. He has seemed to pick up right where he left off. You know, I do look at like this trade deadline as something like if they are getting something that can help beyond this year, then I still say do it, right? Like that's my mentality, which is if it's just going to be real short-term rental stuff, I probably don't do it. I would want something that is going to help the next year or two. And then I think it is worth it. Other than that, you know, I don't know
Pit
that
City
I'm.
What here says Cruz and Rowdy benched again tonight for do we think Shelton overmanages too much against left-handed pitching? You know, I think he does overmanage, and I hate that I always have to say no to this answer because I get asked things like this all the time. He does overmanage, but that's not what this is. This is many people being far too lazy to realize that splits exist. Garrett Crochet is a left-handed pitcher. He's given up 0 home runs against left-handers. Left-handers are hitting 191 against him. Right-handers aren't faring much better. They're only hitting 205, but they have 10 home runs. If Rowdy Tellez isn't hitting home runs, there's no sense in having him in the lineup. That's the way they're thinking. That's what they're thinking. You want to call that overthinking? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd also
like
say they're not saying they won't play tonight. They're saying they won't play against this starter. Like
yeah, like you
that's
have to
all.
look like overall. First of all, these are his overall numbers. We just talked about Skenes having a 0.92 whip. This dude has a 0.97 whip. He has 146 Ks in 105 innings. He is a buzz saw. And if
Yeah.
lefties cannot hit him. So like, yeah, are there times where the lineup gets funky and we don't like it? Sure. Do I think this is the example that I would bring up? Absolutely not. This guy has been ridiculous, Gary.
Now, when you
Ridiculous.
talk about like, hey, why is O'Neal Cruz and Rowdy Tellez sitting against Jose Quintana? I'll have the conversation with you. His splits absolutely do not reflect somebody that you have to sit your lefties against. If they are okay at hitting lefties at all, like which Rowdy is and O'Neal has kind of shown he is becoming. But I think what frustrates me is when a question like this comes up, and I'm glad I didn't yell at Pit City What because I checked myself, Jim. But
This is Gary. This is growth, buddy.
It's growth, and I may have temporarily fell asleep for about 5 seconds too. But when I look at something like that, I'll see, okay, he puts Rowdy on the bench, he puts Cruz on the bench, and maybe that for some reason decides to still start Sawinski. What are you doing? Like, you either really believe in this or you really don't. And if you're gonna pick one of them, it's not Sawinski. So
that got weird for me too. I was like, okay. Well, at first I thought poor Jack. This is like, I think this won't turn out well, but it's a fair point.
Right. And like Josh says here, you have 13 hitters on the roster, you're going to play all 13 hitters. I agree for the most part. I think there's some players that aren't going to play a lot and shouldn't play a lot. But I think O'Neal Cruz is the type of hitter that I probably want to just leave in there all the time, just on the off chance that he's going to run into one. Even against a lefty like this, I would care more about that than I would protecting him. That said, they're trying to get O'Neal right. And I have to say, in the last like 3 or 4 weeks, aside from this hammy whammy he had, he actually is starting to like see the ball better. And he's seeing it against lefties better too. Maybe let's not throw him into the car compactor that is Garrett Crochet right now. Like let's let this play out a little bit. Let him come in a little bit later in the game and have some success against this weak bullpen. Because the other thing Crochet isn't doing, he's not going deep into games a lot.
Yeah,
you're getting
you're
him
hoping
out because much like we were talking about Skenes, he's a strikeout pitcher. You're talking a 5-6 inning outing here if you do it right. So I think that maybe a little bit much to do about nothing. But as far as like the lineups go, every time there's a lefty pitcher, I do think Derek probably over manages that situation a little bit. I think that it doesn't have to be every time it's a lefty. It needs to be the really good lefties. I think you do need to try to avoid it. But for the most part, and it's real hard to argue with their philosophy because against left-handed pitching, the Pirates are one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah, and I will say that like I get at least from the point of like, yeah, the lineup looks really rough when they do this, right? Like viscerally you see it and you're like, oh God, it's 5 through 9 or 6 through 9 is just.
It's really just Triolo for Cruz.
Yeah,
it's the only thing that makes it look that way because I know Connor Joe hasn't been great recently, but you can't be like to the point where you're seeing him as a destitute spot in the lineup. Yeah, he's played that way recently, but like I can't believe in like a month and a half we're already to the point where Connor Joe is now crap and gets thrown into that same conversation
Yeah.
because I don't think he is. But
Michael Taylor tends to set people off too. So
right. Yeah, Michael
but
Taylor. It's another good one. So yeah, that said, they're
it's
successful
just
against lefties. They're doing something right there.
it's just one of those series going back to, like, for me, Gary, like, man, you got to make some hay with this kind of stuff, because right after the All-Star break, they play the Phillies and then they play the Cardinals, who, yeah, the Cardinals, I don't know how they're doing what they're
double
doing.
magic.
But so right away, they go back to having to play one very, very good team and another one that still hasn't realized that it should suck. So, you know,
I'm working on it. I keep telling their fans that they're supposed to suck. It's just not
well,
working.
I think they might be one of the teams you could see fade in the second half.
Yeah.
But the way that division is so weird, I'm just saying, like, you start out with the next 6 games right after the break. There's not going to be a lot of easy wins there, so you damn well better get them against the White Sox.
Yeah. This series, though, it's really any series against the White Sox. You get Garrett Crochet. That's their shot. That's their
Yep.
shot at a game they should win. And we got Marco Gonzalez. I don't know what to expect from Marco Gonzalez.
Anytime
No
guys
idea.
come back after layoffs, starting pitchers even, especially, I think, you never know what that's going to look like. And you certainly aren't expecting a long outing out of them, no matter what they do.
Right. He is a veteran pitcher, though, that knows what he's doing, facing an inferior
Sure.
lineup. So he really should be able to navigate his way through it if he's feeling all right. And everybody seems to think he's feeling all right. The rotation is going to be a weird conversation here. I'm kind of not bothering with it until after the All-Star break because I kind of want to see how they line them up. You know, you should come out of the All-Star break. We should not see TBDs on the probable pitchers page for the first week. They should map out that first 5 or 6, I would think, at least.
Yeah.
And that'll give us a good idea of where they are with these guys, how they feel about them, and where we think like Jones and Falter might fit back in whenever they're healthy.
And that's why it would be so nice to have a Perez at least, like, buddy, you don't got to be real good, but you just can't be real bad. You know what I mean?
I ultimately think he winds up in the bullpen because that's kind of what has happened to him the last couple of years, and I think it's where he can probably be the most effective. But that's putting the horse before the cart, and hopefully, or the cart before the horse, and hopefully there's a swell of health, and that makes the decisions really easy because you're just moving guys off to the pen here and there.
They got Bednar back. Was Baraki activated or
no? Baraki,
not yet?
No news yet.
Okay, but Bednar back. Baraki, I think, is close.
Yeah, this might be the last time they can option Ryder Ryan. I'd have to check on that, but I think the new rules are you can only option them 5 times during the year without having a DFA.
Okay.
So this might be the last time they get away with it.
That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, like, overall, I think it's set up for them to make a little push here, but are they capable of doing anything more? I don't see how they're going to rip off a 15-5 run with the way things are currently.
Yeah, right. Let's do one more comment here. We'll finish up the show. Brody Cannon says he heard a trade rumor, Jared Jones for Jackson Holiday. That wasn't a trade rumor. That was a report from Dejan Kovacevic. And I'm going to use this opportunity not to defend journalists, but to hopefully change the way that you guys think about some of these reports. When a reporter comes out and they say, from a source, blah, 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 and then it turns out that that was not true, it does not make the reporter a liar. The reporter is reporting what the source told him or her. That's it. Can you advise the reporter to get two sources to say something before they mention something? Yes. Yes, you can. Is it standard practice to not do so? Yes. Yes, it is.
Right.
They are not liars when they come out with a report that ends up falling on its face. Somebody told them. They're not making this crap up. Like it. You think like they get paid for clicks? They don't get paid for clicks. Twitter doesn't give any of these people money. None of them. They don't get anything for that. And when they write it in their pieces, they don't get anything for them.
The only time it really comes down to the reporter's fault is, like you said, if it doesn't come, typically you'd like it to come from at least two sources.
Yeah.
Or if you use a source that you're not entirely sure about, or that has burned you in the past, or someone else, then that's probably on you. I have no clue. That's why it's a source. You won't know who the source is.
Or if somebody in charge of like procuring shoelaces is your source that this trade happened. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but like you got to understand what your source actually does within the organization. I've got a ton of sources, Jim. I had a source that told me about this the recent Kane Smith and Jigba move and started talking to me about it. But it's one source with an agenda. I don't talk about it, right? I mean, I talk to you about it,
right?
Because like you deserve that context when we have conversations. But I'm not going public with that because it's one source. I need two sources. I need somebody to back that up for me before I can go with it. And even then, this isn't a game I want to play because there's no money in it. There's absolutely no money in you thinking I know things 10 seconds before Jason Mackey. There isn't. I could care less. I just think that we all blow up on social media at the wrong people. There is some bad information out there. There are people legitimately trying to lie to you and make up that they have sources and crap. I'm sure of it. But some of these guys have been around like forever, like Kevin Gorman or Jason Mackey or DK or whoever. Like those guys that have been doing this for a long time, when they say they heard from a source, they heard from a source. The source was wrong. This same thing happens with Mark Madden all the time. He hears a source say this. Jerry Dulac is another really good example. He's got a source that tells him something. His source has probably been his source for 35 years. And quite frankly, could be going the way of Biden. His source, for all I know. And he still trusts him the same way. Like there's that too. But they're not lying to you.
Right. And compounding things this week was like very different kind of articles from two people in town that were saying very different things about what was going on. So you've already got a fan base that is in general pissed off, which I get, but then two very different type of, avenues, and it ends up being a big effing mess at the end of it.
And I would also say, look where the defense comes from. Look where this is an absolute.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Eric's comment. Eric Longbeard's
doesn't
comment.
Count as two sources if it's FaceTime. I love
it. Inside joke.
We got to get him back on the show. But no, I mean, just things like that. I just think be careful about how you approach it. Like even when you get like that counter to it where, oh no, that's all crap. Is it coming from a Baltimore source? Because of course they wouldn't want Jackson Holiday to think they were like a short hair away from trading him. Okay. Like, and do I think that trade would have even gotten it done? No. Even right now, I'm not 100% sure that that's a 1-1 trade. Even knowing what we know about them right now, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that would be actually interesting to know if that would get it done.
Yeah. But I mean, Shit. You want to get real honest? I had 5 or 6 stories like this I could have told you from spring training, and I'm a nobody. I mean, like,
Yeah, and oh, by the way, these next 3 weeks, you're going to be hearing a lot of stuff, right? Like,
yes.
and Zeiss didn't help matters out with his nugget that Taylor Ward was. I mean, he was packed and ready. So I don't know, man. Just
Everybody
take a
that's
deep
in
breath.
my website's DM chat will tell you that I said the same thing in there because my source said the same thing. But I only had one and I didn't report it.
Right. And people just need to take a deep breath sometimes. Like, everybody's has visceral reactions to the Pirates. It's just how it is in Pirate Land.
Absolutely. Hey, the Pirates are on the center stage here at the All-Star game. Enjoy it. Really soak it in. Let it just be what it is. The Pirates are going to be the center of the baseball world here for a minute with Paul Skenes. So enjoy it, and let's have a fun All-Star game. I'm actually going to watch it for once. I usually don't. I could care less about the All-Star game, really. And let's get back to wearing the freaking uniforms of the teams. That's what I want. No more of this National and American League crap. Make those stupid uniforms for the home run derby and sell them and make your money. But like the game, I'm sorry. I want to be able to look at the field and be like, yeah, that whole infield's Pirates. That's what I want.
Well, and speaking of Pirates, hey, Brian Reynolds in there too. So let's hope that he has a good showing too. Maybe hopefully it's just a night where they both do well and Pittsburgh gets a little attention in baseball, which is a very rare thing. So
very cool. All right, everybody, let's toss it over to Ben because he's got stuff to do here in a couple minutes.
Let's go Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you guys.